about today is that we're going to cover several things that are very important to most people who work in our realm. Number one, we'll be discussing donor relationship principles. Secondly, donor connections. And third, innovative donor solutions. And we're going to do all this in 25 minutes of prepared content plus time for questions and comments afterwards. We're also going to let you ask some questions as we go along. On your screen, you'll see up in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a little tab like this with the orange button. That orange button is really important because when you click that, you'll see that it'll pop open a little control box. This is your attendee control box. When you have a question as we're going through our time of presentation today or even at the end, please type it in there and we'll queue it up, and I'll make certain at the end of the call that we get an answer to that question. Thanks so much for doing that. It's very easy to do that. After the call, we will be sending you an email, and we'd really appreciate it if you'd answer our questions. We'll send you a quick survey. It takes about 4 minutes to do the survey. It'll help us out tremendously in preparing our next presentation. But I want to let you know that this call is for you. It's not for us. We really are delighted to be able to serve nonprofits. We want to share of those things that have been interesting to us that we found innovative over the past year. And I want to share a couple of very important things from our perspective. What we're going to do today is talk about what we believe is in the best interest of our clients. That's what this call is about. And most importantly, advocacy receives no compensation for any products or services mentioned during this call. This is what we're interested in. It's not what we get paid for. What you're seeing today is what's really in our heart. Our three presenters today, Randy Bronkema will be starting in just a few moments. He is a Senior Development Consultant at Advocacy Media. Jerry Grimes will also be joining us. He is also a Senior Development Consultant with Advocacy Media. Then our guest today, David Cox, who is an account executive at DMH Marketing Partners with a very interesting, innovative solution to donor communications. So first, what I'd like to do is set us up, and Randy Bronkema, would you start us off, please?
I would be happy to. In the first slide, I would like to open our webinar today by talking about why. All of us on this webinar know what our organizations do, and we know how we do it. But have we defined the why? For me, the why is Blake. You see my grandson there? I hope you do. He is my very first grandson, and he has made an incredible impact upon my life. You know what? He is really the reason I'm a consultant today. I have a passion to help organizations like yours to become the best they can be for one simple reason, so you can reach Blake and others like him. The why for you is vision. Where do you see your organization in the future? And in order to accomplish that vision, you need resources, don't you? And to get resources, you need more donors. And to get more donors, you need to invest in the process and invest in your current donors. They are the fuel to make your vision a reality. Therefore, it is very important that we invest in our donors, and even more important that we invest in the process of getting more donors. So how do we do that? Well, 4 quick things before I introduce Jerry. Number 1, make all of your correspondence, everything you do, personal. Today we're going to talk a lot about personalization. We all know that the best ways to raise funds is one-on-one. Sitting down with a cup of coffee with somebody, being in a restaurant, talking about the vision, mission, and opportunities of your ministry. That is the best way to raise funds, and we all know that. But we also need to understand that even our correspondence needs to be as personal as possible. The second thing is our return envelopes in what we do in direct mail. Research tells us that the return envelope in a direct mail is the item people lose or misplace the most. Why? Well, a lot of us like to put great design and effort into our direct mails, which is fine. We want them to look presentable, professional, and we get them all to look matching, etc. The problem is sometimes the return envelope gets lost in everything that looks the same. If your desk is like mine, that can be easily done to lose an envelope. So choose a bold color for your return envelopes. It will make a difference in your response rate, and no one will lose it. Use those bold colors. Number 3, return envelopes should be postage paid. People do not buy stamps anymore. They don't use them as much anymore, so make it easy for them. Remember, invest in your donors. If you want to cut costs, do it somewhere else. But please do not cut costs on your donors. Make the envelopes postage paid. And lastly, always follow up your direct mail letters with website promotion. Or if you're a radio station on our webinar, promote the direct mail with on-air promotion. And then after the letter has been out for a week or two, then follow the letter up with an email blast to remind people about the direct mail letter and about what you're trying to do. As we introduce the why, let me introduce you to Jerry Grimes. And Jerry is he's one of the best in the business. And Jerry will begin to start helping you to really define what we mean by this word personalization.
Thanks, Randy. I appreciate it. You know, we live in a very technical age. We're sitting here on a webinar. Most of you have a smartphone on your desk or in your pocket. And this is kind of the way it was 10 years ago. We would get an email. We'd be pretty excited about that. You'd hear, ding, you've got mail, and you jump up and down. Nowadays, so much has happened. We're communicating so much electronically that when we get a letter in the mail and it's written out especially for us, it really gets our attention and we really take notice. And the emails, well, there's a lot of them, so we may not get to those quite as quickly. So moving ahead, what I'd like to talk to you about today is the whole new approach to direct mail that we have to take in this new electronic age that we're in. We find ourselves writing mail for busy people. And as Randy just said, the more personalized our communications are, the better. Because of computers and mass production, everybody looks at mail that comes in with barcodes and window envelopes, and it goes right into the trash because people don't want to be treated like a number anymore. They know, they have a computer at their home or their office. They know how to produce the same kinds of mailings that are highly impersonal and how to insert names in documents and that kind of thing. And it's just old hat. It may have been invented when it first came along, but it's nothing big now. So now we need something to personalize our mail and make it as individual as possible, and we need the communication style to be more personal than ever before. Because people are so busy, here's what happens in the typical home. They go out to the mailbox, they get 3 or 4 pieces of mail, they literally stand over the trash can while they're reading it. And if your letter is not personal, if it doesn't jump out at them, if it looks too intimidating to read because it's written too long, then it's going to go right into that trash can. What you want to have happen with your letter is for people to take it and put it into the bill stack. As advanced as people are with online bill paying and all of these things, we're still once or twice a month going through a stack of mail and paying our bills. That's the average consumer. So your goal is to not get chucked in the trash can, but to move to that bill stack where they might consider sending you a donation. And they're not going to do it if your copy is long and laborious and difficult to read. So your copy has to be shorter and a pleasure to read. That means larger typefaces. It means more bold, italics, underlining, so that they can quickly skim your letter and get the message, and it has to be a personalized, compelling, moving message that's going to want to make them not put your letter in the trash, but put it in that all-important bill stack. And moving on, a couple of more points I'd like to make about the way we're doing mail today is, sorry, we went backwards there. We'll go forwards. Oops. Oh, that's it. One more point. Today's direct mail has to be donor-focused. We have to write for the donor. We have to write with a lot of you language because donors need to know that this is personalized, that we're paying attention to them. It's got to create dialogue in their mind. We have to be able to talk to people as if we're having a conversation with them. Randy said the best way to raise money is in a coffee shop or a personal one-on-one meeting with people. Our letters have to be that personal and that warm and create that same kind of dialogue even though they're in the written word. We also need to transition to asking sooner because people are so busy, and we have to ask twice, once on the first page and once again on the back page, and that ask has to be explicit and clear with specific direction as to what we want that donor to do. And there has to be benefit in there for them. We all know as ministry heads and broadcasters, and some of you are, that we need to understand listener benefits and donor benefits. Well, those same kinds of messages have to be in our direct mail. Donors have to really understand what they're going to get out of a gift to you. And that goes back to the why that Randy talked about in the beginning. If you can't tell a donor what benefit they're going to receive from giving to your ministry or your organization, you're not probably going to get very many gifts. It's an extremely important point that bears repeating. We also need to look at that PS because a lot of people are skimming these letters. They're reading the opening a couple of paragraphs. They're skimming down to get the main content, and then the PS is the most highly read aspect of the letter. So we put the ask in the PS one more time. And moving on, we have David Cox, and he's going to join us to tell us how we can use some techniques to make our letters even more effective.
Good afternoon, Jerry. Thank you for the introduction. I want to welcome everybody this afternoon, and thank you for your time being together on the call. I'm David from DMH Marketing Partners, and DMH was founded in 1994 in Dallas, Texas, and throughout our first 14 years, we focused primarily on producing handwritten direct mail products. You might ask yourself this afternoon, why handwritten direct mail? Well, handwritten direct mail being a highly personalized piece is a powerful performer with nonprofits and our donor base. It really creates, the personalization really creates the excitement in the mailbox and helps to create great results. Some things that I really want to focus on during the presentation that is remaining today is how do we increase the life and the value of our donors and really maximize the potential of the donor. We found that at the height of our handwritten production in 1997, we had about 5,000 handwriters producing millions of pieces for some of America's largest nonprofits, that there was a restriction in the market. Not because the pieces weren't performing well, but because of the cost. Most nonprofits weren't willing to pay $1 or more for a piece of handwritten mail. And so we spent about 1.5 years doing some research and development. And in 2008, we patented genuinely pinned technology. And that's really a focus of the innovation that I want to talk to you about today. Genuinely pinned is a fully automated handwriting technology. For all of us listening this afternoon, we can reproduce your live signature or even your entire handwriting. And I can tell you, it's as close to the real McCoy as you've ever seen. It's frightening to watch a machine, an automated process, actually write just like you. But the results are great. The automation has allowed us to reduce the cost of your mail piece, but at the same time produce the same results as a handwritten mail product. And it's really a spectacular product. What we see today that's happening in Louisville, we'll go to the next slide, is currently we have 300 machines here in Louisville. We have another 60 on the way, set to deliver in July, and we've prepared ourselves to be able to produce any small, medium, or high-volume direct mail package. And so we're fully ready and able to do that for you. Here at DMH, we're a one-stop shop. We have a print, fulfillment, personalization, and mailing all in the same facility. I put a small sequence of slides together. Unfortunately, we don't have a live machine that you can see today, but just moving through to the next sequence of slides, you'll see how the pen actually writes. And if you'll look in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see we actually use a real ballpoint pen. That's a PaperMate. We can use any pen that you choose to do your handwriting. This is actually the handwriting of one of our project managers. It's the holiday font, and this is the kind of innovation that we're doing here at DMH, being able to produce the look and feel of real handwriting that increases the personalization of your direct mail products and really helps to produce the best results. We want to go and really feel or take a look at how everything started. We do a quick history lesson. 30 seconds here through history. 1847, the United States Postal Service was created by an act of Congress. The United States begins to print its first postage stamps featuring the likeness of Benjamin Franklin. What we see about the vintage piece here from 1849 is it has a live postage stamp. It was canceled in Baltimore sometime in February, and it has a handwritten address. And all of these components are important for creating personalization in the mailbox and excitement for your donors. If we look at the next slide, we see that when your donors receive a handwritten mail piece, they instinctively want to know who sent this to me and what's inside. With our genuinely penned pieces, we do the same thing today that they were doing 150 years ago. We do a handwritten, genuinely penned address with the live stamp and the blind postmark, and this really helps ensure that you have a 100% open rate through your direct mail campaigns. We create excitement in the mailbox. We'll go to the next slide here. On the outer envelope, so that each of the pieces are uniquely personal and they work together to help increase response. Just the live stamp and the blind postmark alone can increase response as much as 1%. So it's a very small investment in production to help elevate results for your direct mail campaigns. So we create the excitement mainly to pique emotion. We'll go to the next slide. We know that emotion changes human behavior. And we are in the emotion business. We are asking donors every day to partner with us to help us fulfill the vision that God has given us for our ministries, on our lives, so that we can ensure that the love of God is not only heard here in our communities in the United States, but also around the world. And so creating emotion with your donor helps them to really get a sense of your vision for the future and understand the purpose of the organization. We start with the outer envelope, we create that emotion, and we continue it through onto the mail piece. And the inside of the package, we like to personalize each letter or note card with a handwritten message. This is a piece from one of our radio station clients, and it says, David, our share-a-thon is coming up fast, April 3 through 6. Your gift makes a difference. Please read why. The personalized message really helps to grab the attention of the donor immediately as they get inside the package and begins to define things. When are you asking them to respond? How much are you asking them to contribute? All of these things help, again, to maximize the life and the value of your donor. We'll move to the next slide today. We know that Genuinely Penned helps to do this because a lot of you have $25, $50, $100 donors that are capable of giving so much more. And when you increase the personalization, you really help to maximize results. We'll move to the next slide here. Something that's unique with pen mail is, again, as I said earlier, we have a 100% open rate. We do this by changing the size of the envelope. We get away from the standard number 10 piece, and we personalize that envelope with a genuinely penned outer address. It's remarkable that probably about 98, 99% of your donors have never received a genuinely penned package. So when they see this in the mailbox, it's something new, it's very fresh, it helps to boost the open rate, and anytime we increase the open rate, we naturally increase response. Our clients traditionally come back and tell us that we have helped them to double or even triple your response rate, and that's good because that means we're reaching more donors with our purpose and helping to engage them in support of the organization. Something else you can expect to see on the next slide is a 10 to 50% increase in the average gift. This is standard in the feedback that we receive from their clients. Again, I think a lot of this is attributed to the personalization of the piece, putting a personal message inside. Again, a live signature. And something we like to do is even put the ask amount in the genuinely penned message. It helps to set a guidepost, a beacon, draw a boundary for the donor. You know how much that donor is capable of giving, and you can establish that right away personally using that personal message. Donors really appreciate that you are investing in them, and from the very beginning you show your donors how important they are and how urgent your need is. I want to look at the next slide for just a few minutes. We're almost finished here. Talk about results, because you might ask yourself, hey, does this really work? Well, yes, it does. Let's look at some results here from one of our nonprofit organizations. This is a comparison between a 2010 and 2011 mail campaign. You'll look there, fall of 2010. This is a conventional package that was done through another donor, or excuse me, another vendor. It had no genuinely penned on it. They mailed 40,000 pieces, received a 3.68% response rate, an average gift of $102.29, and a net income of about $126,000, ROI of about 5.27. So good results from the campaign in fall of 2010. A year later, we're testing Genuinely Pens. We mailed for them in fall of 2011 to 27,394 donors. And I'd like to stop and just ask you to bookmark that for a minute, because it's important that the population for the mail quantity decreased by almost 46%, almost half. Yet we still saw the response rate increase to 5.35%. That's a 45% increase in response over the previous year. We saw the average gift increase to $115, 12.5% increase. And we still produced more revenue than the previous year, an increase in ROI of almost 15%. It's amazing. If you look at the results, the miracle in the results is that we produce more revenue and increased results mailing to almost 50% less donors. And I can only imagine the results we would have seen if we had mailed to the same population, 40,000 and 40,000 for both years. The organization didn't lose 12,000 donors, but Genuinely Pens still helped them to produce great results, even mailing to a smaller population. And you'll see the same thing in using the product and incorporating it into your annual direct mail strategy. Just want to leave and close today before I hand this back over to Paul. On the next slide, just to recap, what's the power of the mail? Well, people motivate people. And when you include handwriting, you are including a human component in your mail. And so you're motivating your donors to their very best potential. You're creating the motion and you're helping to change human behavior. You're doing that. You're converting donors, lapsed donors, back into your active file, renewals, renewing active donors back into supporting the organization for another year, and even helping to acquire new donors and bring them on to help support your organization. My final slide today, again, is a verse of encouragement from Ecclesiastes, verse 4:12. It says, though one may be overpowered by another, two can withstand him, and a threefold cord is not easily broken. I close today with this because really we see that through the partnership of DMH and advocacy, we create a two-stranded cord. But when we really partner together to work with all of you in the listening audience, we create the power of a three-stranded cord. That partnership of building the kingdom, helping to extend the reach of your organization and the message of Christ and the love that comes from all that you commit yourself to do through your labor and your efforts every day. And again, appreciate your time that you've given us today. I hope that the information we've shared and the products will be helpful for you. And I want to turn this back over to Paul for some questions as we close out the session today.
Great, thank you. First off, as mentioned, thank you, presenters. Thank you, Randy, Jerry, and David. Appreciate it. Now it's time for your questions. And if you would, once again, up in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the orange button. And that orange button, when you click it, you can ask a question that direction. Just type the question into the attendee control panel on your screen. We do have a few questions already out there, and some of which I've actually deferred to panelists already, but I think let's go ahead and go with public answers on these. For instance, Joel Griffith asks, and I believe I'm going to ask Jerry to answer this, though Randy brought up the question. Interesting you don't like the CRE versus the BRE. He had an agency that recommended the CRE for cost savings. Jerry, what do you think?
I think that Randy's point is very well taken on this, and the research shows that anything that you do to remove the mechanized look of your mailing, the better off you are. For those of you that aren't familiar with the terminology, BRE stands for Business Reply Envelope or Business Reply Mail. BROMS is also called Business Reply Mail System. And it's where you've seen these before. It's where the envelope has these funny stripes running down the right side of it vertically, and it says Business Reply Mail Permit Number, whatever. Those will work on your reply envelope, but you don't necessarily we certainly don't want to use like a bulk reply permit on the outside envelope because that looks too mechanized. So you're trying on your reply envelope, it looks good if you can put a live stamp on there. If that's just out of question from the budget standpoint, then a BROMS permit will work. You do want to work closely with your post office. We've had situations where they will, you have to put the money on deposit at the post office to pay for those as they come in. And we've had situations where post office and smaller communities didn't handle that right, and there was a problem getting the gifts back into the nonprofit in a quick, timely manner. So just know what you're getting into if you do use the BRMS.
That's great. Thanks, Jerry. Another question for you too. Sue Messero asks, where did you get your data regarding shorter letters? Jerry, if you may not be able to pull the citation, but I know you can follow up after the fact to our group.
She's right. Longer copy pulls has been the long-term, long-standing direct mail, adage. And the Direct Marketing Association has tested copy links, and the optimal page count is 2 pages, 2.5 pages. Still, and when I say shorter copy, I don't necessarily mean total copy length. I mean paragraph breaks, shorter sentences, shorter ideas, copy that moves quickly. A letter that is too long is one that's laborious to read. So length is not just in terms of the length of the letter, it's also how hard it is to read, and length of time reading it. And the classic, and I hate to be demeaning to anybody, but we're all probably familiar with this example. The classic of the way it used to be done very deftly back in the day was the 4, 6, 8, 12-page letter from Dr. James Dobson when he was head of Focus on the Family. It got so long that they had to bookfold it, and you would almost read it like a magazine. And believe it or not, in the 70s and 80s, those letters pulled really well. I don't know of anybody that's taking that approach today that's it's working. People just don't have that kind of time. And there are probably instances where longer works better in the public policy arena, the political arena, social causes where people want to be educated about an issue. But by and large, the organizations that we're working with, particularly Christian media, we find that we just will not pull if we have longer copy. And our results prove that 1.5 page front and back letter with 2 asks in it seems to be working very well.
So in essence, what you're saying, if I were to summarize it, Jerry, is to write for the reader. Understand what the reader's time, everything.
Everything should be you can sum up all good donor communications and donor relations by saying, is it donor focused? If we're focused on ourselves, or too much so, even when we're doing major gifts and other things outside of donor communications, we're going to fail. And it's never more important to be donor focused than it is in our communication streams.
Very good. I appreciate it a lot. David, our friend Jeff Bean has a question. He asks, is there a variation in the fonts so the same letter has a little bit of difference every time it's written, just like we humans do?
Absolutely. Jeff, thank you for your question. We use a 4-bit character technology with the genuinely penned machines. And if you can imagine, there's 4 A's, 4 E's, 4 T's, 4 of each character that's loaded into the software, so that as the message is writing in the letters, those characters are constantly being rotated as they appear throughout the message. So we do use the technology in that manner to really increase the authenticity of the mail piece, so that when your donor reads it, they truly get a representation of the real handwriting that we are reproducing. So yes, you will see a variation of characters throughout any of the personalization with the genuinely penned technology.
Very good. And then, David, you used the term blind postmark earlier. Could you go ahead and elaborate on what that is?
I did. We use a blind postmark because the blind means literally that we remove the city and the state from the cancellation over the stamp. We always like to use a live stamp and a cancellation to improve the authenticity of the mail piece, again, also to improve results. But we take away the city and state so that if the donor looks really closely, all they see is the zip code. Most of the time they don't look closely. We have to include the zip code to meet the USPS regulations, but again, we want to take off that indication of where the piece is actually being mailed from, since we are mailing all of our mail here from Louisville, Kentucky.
Very good. And our friend Jeff Bean does ask another question. He asks, basically, can the letters, can the GP letters be customized for each person, so that can you ask then for a suggested gift based on their giving history?
Absolutely. The power of the technology is it's fully variable, and you're not charged for using multiple variables. We actually encourage that. Something that was not available 10 years ago was a variable message through an automated pinning machine. The patent of 2008 is really a software patent in that we now can include as many variables within your genuinely pinned message as you prefer. Dear Sally, Dear Sue, Dear Jane, Dear John, repeating your $50 gift, $100 gift, $75 gift. We can use dates. So all of those variables can be incorporated into the message directly from your data file, including dates, ask amounts, names, cities and states if you want to reference the actual location of your donor. All of those things are possible with the technology.
Very good. Also, Joel, our friend Joel asks, can we get a copy of the PowerPoint? We actually are recording today's webinar, and we'll have a link available, and we'll make that public in an email here very shortly. I'll check on some of the PowerPoint elements because we need to modify it a little bit to make it public, but I'll check on that one. Joel, we'll send an email out on that one. David, now is going to be the difficult question that everybody, I've got several people wanting to know. Can you tell us basically how the costs work for genuinely pinned? Is there a way that they can, that our friends here today on the call can look at their mailing list and say, well, this is about what it costs without having to call David? I know you'd rather talk with them and talk about the ins and outs, but is there a rule of thumb you use on they can use for pricing?
You know, pricing's difficult because it comes down to the print, the number of components within a mail piece, and the level of personalization. The genuinely pinned is priced per word inside the package. We give a flat rate for the addresses on the outside. And quantity is a big indicator in determining price. What I can say is that we do give a discount to all advocacy clients, and that's something that we want to do. Obviously, this is part of our partnership that we really want to partner together and make the product as affordable and economical as possible. To give a flat rate off the top of my head, really we are seeing average prices range anywhere from a 30-cent piece all the way up to a 65-cent piece for good volumes. If you have smaller quantities, obviously that price is going to push. But the importance really is to understand you will pay more with genuinely pinned because it costs more to produce. But the high level of personalization will always generate a greater return. In my 4 years with DMH, we were formerly DNR Group, I have only had one or two cases at the most, where I've ever had a client come back to me and say, gosh, we broke even. Again, we consistently say or see that our clients come back to us and say we've doubled or tripled response, and we've seen an increase in the average gift of 10 to 50%. And when you look at the results you have today and you do the math, you can really see how the exponential multiplication is going to work to increase your return on investment. And so you will pay more, but the investment, your return that you're going to get at the end of the campaign will be far greater than what you're currently seeing with your standard conventional products. And I'd be happy to help anybody with pricing and specific questions regarding their packages.
What we'll do in our follow-up email that will have the survey link in it, we'll also give you the email addresses for each of our panelists today so that you can just reach out to them and ask them any specific questions that you'd have about whether it be genuinely pinned. I do know that Jerry has some quite a bit of information and has worked quite a bit on the content creation side, both to minimize costs and to maximize effectiveness of it. Joel also asks, so the trend is not towards electronic or online, but back to direct mail giving. Jerry, what do you think about that?
Joel, it would make my day, it would make my career and my life if we could stop using direct mail and do everything electronically. What a great world it would be. because then all we'd have to do for no money at all, other than what it costs us to have mass email systems, maybe some software, send out hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars of communication, names of communications, means of communications, and people could respond, and we could raise millions of dollars. Unfortunately, it's not really working that way for most nonprofits. Now, if you're a very large nationwide organization and you can make your ask a very small one for a large number of people, we're talking millions here, like the candidates do, like Barack Obama did in 2008, yeah, the electronic communications are working. And the same is true for something like the funds raised for Haiti, where millions were raised via texting. But if you're the typical nonprofit and your service area is confined to a few counties or a county or a town, you just don't have the base to draw from to use electronic communication effectively, nor do you have the message, the case for support that's going to generate those kinds of responses. So unfortunately, we want to get everybody's email address. We want to connect with everybody on Facebook. We are going to try to continue to use these electronic forms of communication. What they're doing is essentially helping us inform, helping us maintain the relationship. But when it comes to really raising large amounts of money, that is done through direct mail to the states. It's supported by email, as Randy indicated, and it's all part of a communication strategy that must be integrated. But direct mail is still the vehicle that's bringing the cash in.
So in essence, response from direct mail, response from email and digital media, successes are the exceptions, not the rules at this point.
That's exactly what I would say. I'd say that most people are not finding that they can generate very much at all in the way of online giving just by sending out an email. But when they send a direct mail letter, they get larger gifts and they get more gifts.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And Scott, our friend Scott asks, would generally pinned be a cost-effective solution for an introductory campaign? In other words, first-time mailing to say, hey, we are now here in this market area, or give us a listen, donate if you'd like, any of that?
Sure. To acquire new donors or even to appeal to existing donors, yes, it's very effective. What we want to do anytime we're doing an acquisition mailing, which I think is pretty much what the question focuses on, is we want to keep the cost cheap, because we don't want acquisition mailings traditionally do not have a high level of response, and so we want to keep those costs low, keep your investment low, so you see a healthy return. Probably what we would recommend on an acquisition mailing is maybe just a genuinely pinned carrier, an outer envelope. And if we do anything on the inside, keep it real short and simple, so that, again, that the production costs are low, the upfront investment is low, but you're still getting your brand out there, getting your awareness out there of your organization, and attracting new donors and new listeners to the station.
David, I appreciate the way you look out for trying to keep the costs down, because that really helps out our radio stations, especially those here on this call today. And then our friend Bill Sammons asks, hey, do you have a minimum? Looking at perhaps testing GP, what is there a minimum run that you have to keep in your math?
With advocacy clients, we do not have a minimum. We will mail minimums or pieces, or rather direct mail packages as low as 1,000, 2,000 pieces. We really prefer to start at the 5,000 mark or more. Obviously, the more you mail, the cheaper the cost is. And 5,000 pretty much is our price break, where we get a good price break on print and personalization.
Great. And what we may want to do, once again, Jerry has had some significant work with the product and how to manage it from the creative and client side, as well as list segmentation. So there may be some value in contacting Jerry on these matters to basically get that across. We're going to wrap it up here, but I do need to first say thank you. Thanks for joining us. Everybody who joined stayed with us. Thank you very much. And then we're going to send you a survey in just a little while. Please fill it out. It'll take you about 4 minutes, and it really will help us out quite a bit. Then if you have some specific development challenges, we're going to send our contact information with that email. Please do reach out to us. We're always happy to return messages, tee up a call, just have a good time with you on the phone, talking through some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that might be there. Of course, there's no charge for that. So please feel free to reach out for us, and we'll go from there. Folks, this concludes the call today. Thank you for coming, and we look forward to seeing you on a call again soon. Thanks so much.